Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for a gorgeous Saturday morning. Lord, as we're going to take some time this morning and a little bit this afternoon just to dive into your word and what it says, particularly right now as it relates to cash flow and perspective. Lord, I just ask that your spirit would be felt, your presence would be felt. Lord, I ask that you would keep me free from error and that you would use me as a vessel to communicate what you would have to be spoken and said today to those that are in the room. Lord, we know that you have a plan for each of us, and Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to just be your vessel in this mode. Thank you again for this time, and we pray all this in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Morning. So one of the this is going to be a little bit meatier than last night in that had the ladies go up and grab some of the Bibles from the team room. So there's a Bible on the end of each chair, just because we're going to be diving in to some actual practical verses and seeing some of that. So the session for this morning is on budgeting, and I don't know. First question is, when you guys hear the word budget, what comes to mind? Money. Okay. Does anybody hear the word budget and they cringe? I hear people hear the word budget and they think straitjacket. They really do. They're like, whoa. Maybe as they were growing up, they things were a little bit more controlled. It really, the strongholds in our lives can really play a role in this. And so, the way I like to approach it with clients is that a budget can be as loose or as restrictive as you want. I rarely, if ever, look at someone's finances, and it's usually completely uncensored to see everything. Well, I don't get in there and say, oh, you're eating way too much red meat. You're eating way too much steak. You need to go to beans and rice. You need to dial it back. That's, as stewards, the Lord gives us freedom to make decisions. And I'm certainly not going to get in and step on people's toes and say, hey, you got to do X or Y or Z. Now, if they're looking for that kind of help, that's a different story. But whether you are spending $50 a week on food budget or $250 a week on food budget, that may have something to do with the size of family. But if you just like spending more on certain things, that's your priority, as long as it's achieving your goals. And so we may think that there are 1,000 ways to spend money, but I'd like to kind of boil things down and make it a little bit simpler. And there's really only 4 places that money can go. And all of the wedges, as I'll show you in a second, well, they're all acknowledged by God because they're all ways that we can spend his money. So it's not like we're going to be coming up with anything new. So I like to call it live, give, grow. That's really the 4 broad categories. And that's how our income is divided. Whether you're, making $150 a week or $1,500 or $15,000 a week, there's really only a matter of a certain number of things that you could do with it. And I could give you some stories that would curl your toes in terms of people making ridiculous amounts of money, $400,000 or $500,000 a year, who are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's a very real thing. If you don't have a plan for your money, it goes away. It flies away. And it really is. Tax time is a time where I hear a number of clients really look back and say, man, where did all that go? That's a sign that we don't have a plan for our money. And so if there's 4 uses of money, live, give, grow, 2 are short term, 2 are productive, and 2 are consumptive. So who can guess one that is consumptive? Of live, give, and grow, what's one that is one where we are spending money, we're consuming? Of those 4.
Live.
Right. This is audience participation. So here we go.
Somebody else said it first.
Sorry about that. All right, so for those that have no idea why I'm throwing Twix at people, the background there is that my grandfather worked for M&M Mars and created the Twix bar. Made a lot of money. I saw them make a lot of money mistakes, money drama, and so that's kind of what prompted me to get into this role. And so, from a standpoint of the four areas, the 2 that are productive and 2 that are consumptive. Like you said, I like to say that the growing in the giving, and what's the other one besides live? Oh, okay. So there's two components to that. In the O, it's owe debt and owe taxes. Now I'm going to throw something out there that makes some people get a little bit surprised. I believe that we should pay taxes with thanksgiving. I know that sounds very weird, but if you don't like paying taxes, there is a way to not pay taxes, and it's to stop working. Okay? If you are paying taxes, if you're paying higher taxes year over year, one year to the next, that's symptomatic of God's provision. God has provided more, and we're going to be diving into some verses, very clear indication that that's something that we should be stepping back. Early on in my career, I actually was using it as a joke. Oh, he's got to pay taxes. But then the Lord kind of said, whoa, this is important to be seeing this. So just looking at a couple of things, and I'm going to pass out at a page afterwards. But if we go through this, live, give, owe, grow, we've got to start with God in the center. And so I'm going to divide this session into kind of two halves. The first half is we're going to talk theoretical, 30,000-foot view, how to view things, and then we're going to get very practical. Because my wife, God bless her, last night she said, Lee, this is great, and last night we spent more time talking about the 30,000-foot view, but she said, you need to get into the weeds some, because that's what really kind of helps people. And so we're going to do that from a budgeting standpoint. I'm going to share some of the mistakes that we made, or are making, and some of the things that we've learned right. And so starting with the overall piece, this is live. We've got a balanced provision and protection. How much is enough? In my role, working with people, that's the big question. Everybody wants to know, how much is enough? Am I ever going to have enough? We're going to continue to have enough. That's the big worry. We need to understand that living is not a dirty part of the pot. Okay? God does not call us to live as paupers. He does not say he does not say everybody is to sell everything and to not enjoy life. There's a balance. We can go to extremes on all areas. I think it's very easy for us to take things well beyond what the Lord had intended. So if someone can please read Psalm 37:21. So we're going to dive into some passages here. Courtney, can you read that one for me?
The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously.
Okay. From a standpoint of a budgeting process, looking at how to take that first step, what I would say is, first thing we need to do is we need to acknowledge whose is it. And if we are going to do that, it's very clear that we see that God owns it all. God owns it all. Psalm 24:1. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and the hills. He owns everything. Well, if we view it as his, well, the natural implication there is, we should probably see what he has to say about it. Next one, if somebody can look up Philippians 4:11 and 12. Philippians 4:11 and 12. Can someone read that for me?
Seriously?
Go for it, Jordan.
So Philippians 4:11 through 12 says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound everywhere, and in all things I'm instructed both to be full, to be hungry, both to abound, and to suffer need."
Okay, so if God gives us everything that we need, we have everything that we need right now. I would caution anybody that is saying, I need to make a little bit more, and then I will be happy. All we need to do is take a look at people that live in third world countries, and we need to see how content they are. Content is a choice, okay? You can either make ends meet by making more or spending less. But contentment is a choice. I really, and frankly, I think it's important to understand that if if my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, if she was getting an allowance, and she's not, but if she was getting an allowance and it was $5 a week, and she was not content with that, well, I'm certainly not going to give her more just to see if that would make her content, because it won't. And I believe our Heavenly Father treats us, we see comparisons in just how we would treat our kids, even as sinful beings. So from a standpoint of understanding that it's His, I think that's a baseline there. Next verse is 1 Timothy 5:8. Please read that for me.
But if anyone provide not for his own, and especially of those of his own house, he is denied the faith and is worse than an infidel.
Okay, so I hear this verse thrown out a lot in terms of children, okay? Well, if I'm not going to provide for my children, okay, like that, look out, warning, warning, warning. I personally believe, and I'm not going to rabbit trail on this, but I personally believe that this also applies to our older family members as well. I sometimes see clients who are interested in structuring something so that the state will pay to provide their care when they have the resources to do so, but basically shield it. And you can do that legally, but legally is not, as believers, legally is not our line, right? It's not our line in the sand. Oh, well, the law says this, okay? It's what God says, okay? Providing for our family. And the last one in this section is 1 Timothy 6:6.
For godliness with contentment is great gain.
Okay. Two things determine how our money is allocated: priorities and commitments. I think a lot of times we get not overwhelmed. We are able to too easily see the commitments, either the past commitments, debt, or the present commitments, that we sometimes forget, don't take the time to focus on the priorities. And that's what we were talking about a little bit last night. We all have a lot more flexibility, control over our spending than I think we realize. And so if we have a priority, tithing, saving, and we put those at the top, I think not only will the Lord allow us and give us the strength to make some of those difficult choices, but we are able to live on a little bit less than we thought. And frankly, I would say if you're like me, I don't have any clue how to get started, I'm going to give you some tools, and we'll get into this in a little bit practically. But first things first is usually how I say. And we don't build. I love walking into this building and seeing that brick that's showing the cornerstone. I absolutely love that. Well, you got to build from the bottom up. We don't want to put a third floor balcony on before we've built a very secure first floor and foundation. And giving and acknowledging what's the Lord's is personally, I believe that's the foundation. Okay, so living. Next one is giving. We're talking a little bit about that. Verse is 1 Corinthians 16:2. Who could pull that up for me? 1 Corinthians 16:2.
Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come.
Okay, so the simple way to view that for me is, if we view church, and I wasn't given any of this to say, so just be clear. If we view church as the seventh day of the week, and we view it as that's what we will give at the end, well, very rarely is there anything left. I think it's very important to view Sunday as the first day of the week. Now at my work calendar, I'm like, okay, Monday starts. But from a financial perspective and starting it, that's what the verse says. First day of the week, set this aside. Second verse in this category is 2 Corinthians 9:7. 2 Corinthians 9:7.
Every man according as he has purposed in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves the cheerful giver.
So I would say that, one, God doesn't need our money. I want to be very clear. I do not think that there is a benefit to giving begrudgingly simply to do that, I think if our heart's not in it, then there's not a value in it. Now, what I have a lot of times seen from people is that if you want to have a heart towards something, if you start giving towards it, it's amazing how suddenly you become dialed in. If you want to have a heart for missions, you start supporting a missionary or two, it is amazing how you will start to become dialed in missions. You'll be like, ooh, my money's going there. Okay, let's see this. This is something that I think starting the process is important, but understanding that a lot of times God gives us instructions, and we occasionally see the worldly benefit of following that, but sometimes we don't. We see the repercussions when we don't follow it, especially in this day and age in the world we live in. But from a standpoint of understanding that God has given us clear instructions on this, I think it's important to not just overlook that. Third section is owing debt. So I said this last night, I have a mortgage. I had a car loan at one point. There are very, very few commands in Scripture when it comes to money. There are a ton of principles, there are many guidelines, but there are very few commands. It's not do this or you will perish. Okay? And I think that's important to understand because we are all free to make our own mistakes, and we do. Debt is probably the biggest issue here. Debt is not something that affects your salvation. I'm not even flirting with that. I want to be very clear. But what it does do is it always mortgages the future. If you are making $1,000 a month, but you're overspending, you're spending $1,200 a month. Okay, well, you start to put it on credit cards, right? You're building that up. A year goes by, okay? You've got $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 in debt because those interest rates get out of hand very quickly. Well, if you want to go from $1,200 where you are spending, but your income's only $1,000, well, you can't just go from $1,200 to $1,000 to right the ship. You got to pay this debt off now. Now you got to drop below just to make those interest payments. Debt always mortgages the future. Now, I'm not this type of advisor that says, oh, there's good debt and there's bad debt. There are decisions, there's questions, and we'll go into this a little bit more in the next session. But we've got to make a very strong point to prioritize what we are doing with our money that's coming in. So, owing debt. Psalm 37:21. I had Courtney read that. If you can just read that again for me, please. She's like, don't call on me.
The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously.
Okay, so there's the verse. I think I have it in the next session. It talks about basically you spend everything. Fools spend all that they have. Okay, if you don't have something left over, by God's definition, you are a fool. I didn't say it, but we all can do foolish things. Now, I'm not saying if you don't have $1,000 left over at the end of the month, you're a fool. No, but I again, this is all theoretical. We're all talking big picture, right? Ideas, pie in the sky. We're going to get practical very shortly. Okay, owing taxes. We talked about that. One verse here, Luke 20:25. It's the second half of that. Somebody can read that for me. Luke 20:25.
He said to them, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's.
Okay. It's pretty clear. Now, government. We need to, God tells us not only to obey and honor those that He has instituted as authority over us, but as taxes, don't get me wrong, I don't think, I don't know what the taxes are in Ohio from a state tax perspective. Jersey is like New Jersey, where I'm from, one of the worst states, like literally. Well, I'm not saying stay in a certain state if you were inclined to move simply because, the Lord has led me to stay here and we want to pay. You can be wise with your decisions, and there are ways to save on taxes. But I think the mindset is important here. We want to understand that this is not a burden. This is something the Lord has very clearly called us to do. And the last wedge, is grow. I got a couple verses here. They're all in Proverbs. If someone can turn to Proverbs 6, and if someone can turn to Proverbs 16 for me. First one is Proverbs 6 and 8.
Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. Provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest.
Okay, so the ants, who have no organizational structures as far as I can tell, well, they naturally save money. You find yourself with a spouse, or if you're having money fights, build an emergency fund, and I guarantee you that will slow down. So one of the first things that we learned when we were first married is that without an emergency fund, every financial stressor caused marriage stress. Okay? Every time there was something other than like tires or brakes that were needed on the car, even a little $200 bill, it was like, not only is there car drama, but there's money drama, and now there's marital drama. It's like, after we had fully established an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, set it on the side. Even when we had first started, just put $1,000 aside. We had a car. We needed like a tie rod. I know nothing about cars. Okay, I want to be clear. So, they told me tie rod. If a tie rod isn't something in a car, please tell me and I'll change mechanics. But so they said we had to change a tie rod, $400. Okay. Courtney called me. She said this needed to be done. It was on the van. I was like, okay, pay it. We go pick it up. We're driving there so that I could drop her off to grab it again. And suddenly it was like we hit this red light and we didn't have the same old money drama fight there. It was like, fix the car. What are you going to do? It's not like we're not going to do that. You have to fix the car, right? Well, when you follow these principles, it was like, oh, okay, the Lord is telling us we need to set things aside, just like the ants do, the emergency fund. Next one is Proverbs 16:3.
Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established.
Okay. And then, nice, I love it. And then Proverbs 16:9.
A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directs his steps.
I like that one. The Lee summary of that, the Lee is, Lee makes plans and God laughs, okay? Especially when it's Lee's making plans, okay? He chuckles, I make him laugh. I think we all do, if we're honest, okay? At times we make him laugh. If we can enjoy funny things that our kids do and, friends and family do, I know that he is up there enjoying himself sometimes. I don't mean spiteful, I just mean some of the stupid things we do. Okay, so last thing before we get practical. I've got 5 symptoms of stewardship that I actually wrote down this morning. And this is from my experience in work. So 5 symptoms of someone who is trying to focus and be a good steward of their resources. Number 1 is proportionate giving. We do not ask people to give our church as the treasurer. We don't ask them to give us copies of their tax returns. Okay, we do not. For us, we look for consistent and regular giving. That's something that we look for. Now, we're, especially from elders and deacons and pastoral staff. For us, I believe proportional giving is important. It can be automatic. Okay, we write a check each week for our tithing. For us, that is wherever we are. So, tomorrow we are going to write a check for this week's tithing, and we put it in a plate. For us, I try not to get too far into the weeds of, oh no, I need to drop it in the mail so that it gets there by Sunday morning at our home church. Okay, this is a vertical relationship. This is not about, I have to support the home church or support this. I would say that if you are members, if this is your home church, this is where your proportional giving would be. So number 1, symptoms of stewardship is proportional giving. Number 2 is a controlled lifestyle. I also wrote down debt-free, but I wanted to be very delicate with that. I don't want, you do not have to be debt-free to be demonstrating a controlled lifestyle. I think consumptive debt is very important. So there's debt. If we're honest, us having a mortgage, it allows us to have a house quicker than we would if we saved up X amount of dollars for a house. We chose that. Now, we chose that because we felt that the benefits outweighed the risks. But we are all aware of a situation where if we don't have an emergency fund and and I lose my job, well, suddenly the risks can suddenly be staring us in the face. So debt has risks, all of it does. So symptoms of stewardship: proportionate giving, controlled lifestyle. Number 3 is taxes paid with integrity and thanksgiving. I think it's very important to do that. The Lord sees everything. That's what we're trying to instill in our kids. They see everything, even if mom and dad don't see everything. You know, where did that little candy go? Why did that disappear? You know, Lizzie's like, I don't know. You know. Number 4, jointly set financial goals. Spousal unity is biblical. I can't tell you, that is probably on the top 3 in terms of challenges. I'll come in, I usually always meet with husband and wife. Accountability is key here. And I don't just mean men to men and women to women, but accountability when you have a spouse, making sure that one person is not controlling every piece. Now, every couple has different strengths. Okay, so one of the things that Courtney was very happy to do when we got married, she gave me her little wooden money box where she had her checkbook and her things, and she was like, Lee, I'm so happy, here you go. Okay? And I shared last night how, you know, even early on, we were doing everything practically right. You know, we thought we were, but sometimes it's like, oh, that was dumb, should probably change that. Jointly set financial goals. If you don't have somebody that knows your situation well enough, that can keep you accountable, I would put that on the list of to-dos. So if you're single, if you're a widow or a widower, having somebody that can call you if you overstep. You know, sometimes shopping can be a peacemaker. It's something that people will enjoy. It's a panacea, something that they can use to make them feel better. Bad situation, they're stressed, maybe growing up, they went shopping. Well, if you're single or a widow or widower, you could pretty much go out and spend $250 and blow your month's budget on clothes or food or whatever, and no one's gonna know. Okay? I can't really do that. One of the things Courtney and I established was a spending threshold where if it's above a certain amount, we're gonna talk to each other first. It's not $5. Okay? But there needs to be accountability. I think that's, you know, throughout Scripture is understanding that koinonia, fellowship together. And number 5, so 4 was jointly set financial goals, and 5 is actually accountability. I had that as a separate category. That is not generally a role for your advisor. For an advisor, that's somebody who sees you on a more regular basis, day to day, can see if you suddenly show up in a really expensive car and you're making $15,000 a year. You know, like it's easy for us to sneak things through the system. So this is kind of the big picture. I'm going to hand out something and actually walk you through the budgeting process, and then answer some questions. Any questions about this from a 30,000-foot view before we kind of pivot? Okay. So first thing I'm going to ask, can you help me pass these out? Okay, so this is like 5 pages. Don't get overwhelmed. That's fine. And each packet is rotated back and forth. So every adult gets a packet. Okay. Well, 1 per couple, if that's okay. Sure, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to pull it up just so that we can also see that what we're looking at on the screen. Okay. Okay. So basically, what we need to focus on is that money's coming in the door, right? Assume, you know, if money's not coming in the door, that's probably more of an issue for our next session, which is debt and, you know, getting out, you know, from under the thumb of that feeling. But from a budgeting standpoint, we need to just get some structure and order to what a budget looks like. Now, I'm sure some of you may be sitting here saying, well, duh, that's, you know, you have to have a plan. If you fail to plan, if you don't have something that you're shooting for, you're going to hit that every time. You're not going to achieve anything. Now, that's fine if you're making far more than what your needs are. But that's rarely the situation. I want to be clear. It's scary when I sit down with somebody and a couple is making $500,000 and they have a gorgeous house, but they're overloaded with debt and they have done a very poor job. Because when you're in that kind of a role, when you have the ability to make, I'm going to call it very serious money, well, a lot of times you don't feel the need to be disciplined. You think you can just make your way out of it. Especially if you're a business owner or if you're in a commissionable job where, oh, if I overspend this month, next month I'll just work a little harder. That's dangerous. That's presuming upon the future, which we're going to talk about next session. That's very dangerous. And it violates a biblical standard. So in this packet, this is just an example. This is a copy of some materials from Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. I'm a coordinator for the class. He is a Christian who teaches Christian budgeting principles. It's wildly popular. It's wildly entertaining. For $100, you can get a 7 or a 9 session class, 9 1-hour class where it takes bites of the apple to all these principles. And Courtney can attest, she hears 9 weekly sessions of financial principles and she's like, get me out of here, but would you say it was entertaining? He is
Very
funny,
helpful.
it's enjoyable, and it is enjoyable not just for the financial nerds. He likes to call it the nerds and the free spirits, okay? So in every marriage, there's one that's a little bit more nerd, a little bit more free spirit. If we're honest, every one of us has a little bit of nerd, a little bit of free spirit in us. Some of us have more nerd than others. So if you're looking at this packet, this is a way to go ahead and just start the budgeting process. So a couple of pages on here. This is basically just starting from the top down, okay? What are you making? You're going to start with that. I don't know if this, oh yay, my clicker's working. Okay, so monthly cash flow plan. This is a comprehensive one. I've got a 2-page one. It's actually a single-page one that I'm going to give you in a second. It is literally a quick start budget. It's a single page, but you got to just put first things first. And so it breaks it up into categories, okay? So you start at the top right, monthly take-home pay. How much money's coming in the door? If it's $2,000, you're going to write that up there. You're then going to have a column for what is budgeted, what you want to do. And then you're going to track it throughout the month and mark down what you actually did. So this is a form to help you with that, but there's kind of 3 steps to the budgeting process. 3 steps. If you've never done a budget at all and you want to start one, the first thing to do is to figure out what you have been spending. I'm tired of hearing this statement, but I hear it a lot. I put everything on a credit card because it's easier to manage. Yes, it's all in one place, but, and this is something from Financial Peace University. So these major companies are very, very wise marketers, and they're very, very wise. So McDonald's was the first who can remember times when credit cards weren't accepted at, restaurants or retailers, okay? JCPenney was one of the last ones. JCPenney was one of the last retailers to start accepting credit cards because JCPenney, he was tight-fisted. He did not like credit cards, okay? McDonald's was one of the first fast food restaurants to start accepting credit cards. Do you think they were doing that just to, for you? No. They knew that when people spend on a credit card, they spend about 70% more than when they spend cash. That's the difference between going out and if we're going out in a group and I'm paying on a card, they'll be like, okay, I'm going to supersize me and I'm going to pick up the meal for them. Okay, here's the card. I don't feel it. But if I'm paying cash, it's like, ooh, dollar menu, you're on your own. Okay? There is a pain center in the brain. Okay? When you have Benjamin Franklin and, he's in your wallet, you see him every now and then, it's like he's part of the family. Okay? When you got to give him over to that plate to pay for that meal, it's like, it's like you're losing a cousin. It's like you're losing a family member. Okay? We use cash for things. We do. We do not use cash for everything. Okay? But the first step in figuring out a budget is figure out what you've been spending. So if it's on a credit card, if it's on a debit card, if it's pulling out receipts, I would say look at the last few months and take a copy of this, make a copy yourself, and just take what you've been spending, like last 3 months. June, July, August, October now. So July, August, and September. Take the last 3 months of how much you've gone out to eat, average it, put it in the category. Put it under restaurants. Okay? Just write it down. I don't care if you think it's ugly or you're scared by it. Put it down. See if all of your categories are more than that number up top. If it is, you got a problem. But now you know you gotta fix it. This is the cleaning out of the closet, okay? That's the first step. Go through all the categories, average them, take either just the last month, what you did for September, write it on there, or take the last 3 months or 6 months if you wanna get super detailed. Write it on there. Add it all up, see if it's above the total. Then you start looking at it and say, do I like what I see? Do I wanna make some changes? Again, I'm not gonna ever slam you. I don't think that's right. But is it achieving what you want? Oftentimes we put this together, we find that these 2 boxes, tithing, saving, they got a lot of zeros in them. Sometimes the rest of these categories still exceed this top number. That's why we have this feeling in our mind of we can't give, we can't save. You can, you just gotta start with that. You gotta put first things first, and then the rest of the boxes you gotta live on less. That's a choice. I don't like it when I hear people say, and so I've tried to stop saying it, we can't afford that. Someone's making $50,000 a year, and they want to go on a date night once a month. Very important, even with lots of kids, especially with lots of kids. But we can't afford to do date nights, and I got to stop people. I'm like, are you working? How much are you making? What's a typical date night for you? You can afford it. You're choosing not to. You can say, oh, I can't afford that boat. Well, you can't afford it, okay? If it's more than what you make, you can't afford it. But if it's less than what you make, you can afford it. You can afford a whole bunch more than you thought. It's just, what are your priorities? What are your choices? So step 1 is to figure out what you have been spending. It's kind of like beginner's budgeting. Everybody starts with beginners. It's like riding a bike. You gotta start, you gotta fall. Okay, this is not an overnight process. The second step is to take those once a year bills, those annoying things like the DMV that pop up, and make sure that you're including them in every single month. That's important. That's kind of a slightly more advanced technique but they're known bills. It's like heat or water, like once a month, once a year, 1 month a year. In the fall, it's usually October, we water the lawn more. Now, we don't have a sprinkler system. We do. It's the above ground sprinkler system that is with like 18 hoses. Okay? Because the fall is a great time, we take advantage of it. We get a letter every year from the water company that says, whoa, your water bill this month has exceeded your bill last month by a lot. We're worried you have a leak. And we just throw it away because we know what we're doing. Well, you've got to find out those bills that happen once a year or 4 times a year, and you got to slice and dice them so that they go into your 1 month view. That's kind of your intermediate level. Advanced level is your mini sinking funds, your mini savings buckets. So, and the perfect category there is gifts. Okay? My wife and I are both December babies. We have a December baby that's a daughter. We have an October baby that's a daughter. The 4th quarter for us, October, November, December, is a much higher, especially with Christmas, is a much higher number when it comes to finance and saving for gifts. So if we want to smooth out our budget, what that meant is that we need to figure out what we were spending in an entire year on gifts, divide that by 12, and that's what we needed to set aside into an envelope, which we literally do each month. It took us 2 years to figure that out. 2 years of putting money away in January, February, $50 each month or whatever it was. She doesn't go crazy on gifts. With a brother, a sibling, or Christmas, we're talking $10, $15, $20. We're not talking $50, $75 per gift. She's got 1,000 cousins. I have like 2. I know where they are. She has like 20. When we first got married, sorry, I'm rabbit trailing. Your dad's one of 7? One of 7, her mom's one of 5. 3 days after we started courting, there was a family party. There was like 20 cousins there. She gave me a little piece of paper with all their names and ages. I laminated it, stuck it in my wallet. I was like, this is more people than I, met in my family. It was enormous. Well, we've got a lot of birthdays. So it took us 2 years of figuring out what that number is in January, February, March through the summer, so that in October, November, December, when we continued with that same amount of spending for gifts, that we didn't break the budget. Now, each year as we upped that, we realized, okay, we're getting better. It still meant that Christmas and birthdays, maybe we had to pull a little bit from savings. But it took us 2 full years to figure out what that nut is, and then we tweak it as we, have more kids or whatnot, something like that. This is not an overnight process. But I can tell you, our process each month is once a month, I will go to the bank. Of our 40 categories, 15 of them are actual cash envelopes. I actually changed banks because I wanted to be able to go to, PNC. It was closer for us on the way home. And once a month, I come out with like a stack of bills. They're not all 20s and 50s and 100s, okay? But I literally have a number that I know and a breakdown because I want them to give me cash. They think I'm going to like Atlantic City or something, But now they're starting to get it. We'll come home, and that night usually, we will go through and she'll pull out her envelopes. So examples of envelopes. Kids, food, help me out here. Kids, food, Lee clothing and fun, Courtney clothing and fun, family fun, toiletries, date night. What's so nice for me, because once a month or twice a month, I will reconcile the budget. I will balance the checkbook, right? Just track your spending. It's so nice for me because all those categories, I don't worry about them at all. I don't have to check my debit card balance, twice a day or even every other day. It's so nice. One, because there's a buffer in there, but two, because half the transactions, we've decided on what that amount is, okay? So, for children, okay? Is it 100 a month, something like that, 75 a month, whatever the number is? Well, we decided on what that amount is. I give that to her in cash. It's done. Now, that is half the battle. If that's going to get blown through and not managed as its own little mini budget, well, then we got a problem. But the nice thing for me is, the only time I really hear about that, because these are things that maybe Courtney is managing more, is that, hey, we're having a family party. We need an extra $40 or $50 or something like that for this envelope for the month. People hear envelopes and they're like, Lee, how old are you? Like everything's electronic these days. There is a feel to money, and I would suggest that if you have a black hole category where money goes to disappear, you make that your cash envelope. That's the first envelope that you make. That will help you out. You wanna know what that black hole is for a lot of people? It's food. You wanna know why people don't save money? It's because they're eating it all. Now, I like a good snack. Now, okay, I'm glad you bring that up. So, neither Courtney and I are not coffee drinkers, but what's important with this budgeting process is that you do not create the straitjacket. Very important. Courtney and I have an envelope that we each get, I think it's like $20, $25, that is completely untracked. For me, in my wallet, I actually have it, so on the left side is budget money. It's money that's tracked. I have a little piece of paper that I slice up and I write down everything that maybe doesn't have a receipt, because I save all my receipts. If you're not saving receipts, it's because you don't want to track your money. Start saving your receipts. All right, well, this is the budget money. But on the right side, it's Lee's money. Okay? It's Lee's money that if I want to stop and get a coffee, if I want to stop and do something that I don't need the budget to justify, I can do that. That's what gives me the freedom. It's more important that it gives Courtney the freedom too. Because if she has to ask the budget or ask me for every little thing, or I have to ask her, hey, why'd you go to Kohl's? Well, that just creates mass chaos. That's even worse. That's kind of overreacting to the budget process. So it's important to have freedom there. If coffee is important to you, have a coffee envelope. I don't care if going out to, once a week for a restaurant is important, you should have a restaurant envelope. If you have the money to do that, and that's a priority, that's fine. Set it up as an envelope so that, but then stick to it. That's what's important about the cash. Because when the money's gone, you stop. If you just blow through it on the app or on the Excel spreadsheet electronically, well, it's useless. Why'd you even set up the budget? If you set up $100 a month for going out to eat, and the first week of the month you go out to eat 3 times, and there's like $6 left in the envelope, the discipline is to not go out to eat until the next month's cash. If you don't do that, well then this whole process is useless. So this is the monthly cash flow plan. There's 2 pages of this. There's a lot of extras in here for others. This is the thing that if you want to start honoring the Lord and spending less than you make, this is the principle for this. This is a 2-page process that will allow you to at least get that done. So that's the monthly cash flow plan. A couple of extra forms in here. The one towards the back is a lump sum payment form. If you're making lump sum payments and you want to know how to break it down, this is just a page where you can kind of take those one-off expenses. Give me some examples of one-off expenses. I keep using the DMV, I need to diversify. Property taxes. Okay, 4 times a year. What are some other ones that don't come?
Car insurance.
Car insurance, home insurance,
Vacation.
vacation. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. Trash pickup. There you go. Pay for trash pickup? It's not included in?
Not in the country,
Okay. Oh, good point. Okay.
once every 3 months.
So, but you've got to start saving. Remember those 3 levels? What you have been spending is level 1, track that. Level 2 is breaking up those bills that are a known amount into 12-month increments. The third one is to plan ahead for those little funds. Vacations is a perfect example, okay? The emergency fund, tithe, like all of those things need to get broken down. And the good news is, it's not often as scary as you think. The numbers may not add up, you may be in the red at the end of that, but now you have the closet opened up and you're cleaning it out. Now it's just a matter of whether or not you wanna actually finish cleaning the closet or just you wanna shut that door again. So this is a way to break that down. And this other page, this is a recommended percentages. This is something that I think a lot of people really enjoy. And it's, well, how much should I be spending on this? Lee, can you give me some guardrails? I get that question a lot. So from a giving standpoint, that's clear. We got, clear instructions on that from a tithing standpoint, et cetera. All right, but saving, housing, utilities, food, transportation. Cars are expensive. If your car bill, your car loan or your truck loan is like 30% of your budget, I would submit that that's really high. Now, it's a follow-up conversation, you say, oh, well, what do we do there? But that's part of the process. That's going to be talked about in the next session. But here's some recommended percentages. And the last one, which I'll leave up here or I'll pass out. The ladies, I don't know, is it okay for them to have please?
I'll hold it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but they were helpful. You could give anybody that wants one 2 pages. So that's 2 pages, and it's like rotated. That's perfect. Only 13 sizes each get like 1 bar because they also went and grabbed the Bible with the IC locking onto that too. So this is a quick start budget. This one is.
Did you already get one of these? Did you get one of these?
No.
Josh, you get one?
Yeah, one of
Same thing.
Oh,
Did you get the quick start budget?
About 1 page.
So there's 2 pages of the quick start budget. One is the instructions, and one is the actual single-page quick start budget. If you are literally if you're like 2 pages, a little bit too much for me. You want to start with this broad picture, single-page quick start budget. Okay. Easiest way to do is to literally. Thank you for your help. This is for you to share with your sisters and the Red Sox fan.
Me too. She's like, I'm not sharing with you.
There's not no candy bar here for all that.
Each get a bar and mom's okay. Okay, so quick start budget. Guys, I don't really care how you do a budget. I don't care whether it's on paper, whether you use all envelopes, or whether you do it in an app. Okay, Mint. There's a ton of them out there. It's whatever works best for you. You want something that, you and your wife are both, electronic friendly, and you're willing to maintain the sanctity of the individual electronic envelope. Ooh, there's $75 in going out to eat. When it's at $3 left, we're gonna stop. As long as you agree to that, I don't care how you do it, okay? We do not put everything into envelopes. Gas. Now, what I will tell you is this. We haven't had credit cards in 5 years. We have a personal debit card, personal checking account with a debit card that we each have a card for, and I have a work debit card, work checking account. That's it. So when I rented a rental car out here, people are like, oh no, you need credit cards, how do you live? How do you build credit? No. Okay, this is what the card companies want us to do, they're not our friends. Okay, let's be real here. They want you to not pay on your balance because that's when they make 18 to 24 to 28% interest on you. There was a term when, long ago, if you didn't pay your bills, what was the term? What were you called? You were a deadbeat. In the credit card companies, if you pay your bill each month, they refer to you as a deadbeat because they are basically lending you money each month for free. They want you to stop paying. They want you to spend more than you can afford because that's why they do so well financially. That's why financial companies are so big. From a standpoint of understanding your budget, whatever process works for you. Well, we don't do everything in envelopes. Gas. Now, I have a budgeted category for how much, typically we spend on gas. We drove to the Outer Banks. We had gone to Williamsburg. So the last 6 weeks, that was a little bit higher. It's not like I draw the line in the sand and then I start biking to work. Okay? Like there's only, seriously. Now maybe some of you can do that closer, but it's cold. There's categories that you need to track for tracking purposes, but then there's some that you have the control over. I'm not suggesting that you budget for property taxes, and then if it goes over that, you don't make the full payment. Okay, let's be smart here. Yes, sir.
Well, on the gas thing.
Yeah.
You can't control when they raise the prices.
Correct.
So you kinda gotta.
There's some flex, that's exactly right. That's one of those ones where you need gas to work, but it also just allows me to be mindful of whether, I couldn't tell you what gas prices is right now, not because we have an $800 a month gas, envelope or, gas budget. It's a matter of we track it so that I understand and know that, hey, we do have some control over it. We're not gonna drive an hour and a half to spend 10 minutes at the beach. Okay, let's be smart there. So that's one of the ones where you can't control all of it, but others like going out to eat, something I'm very impressed with when we first got married is, how Courtney structures the food budget. So, we like brownies, but she always looks at the ad and she will buy what's on sale. So it might surprise you, but it doesn't surprise Jordan and Laurie, but we're big milk drinkers. I'm a big milk drinker. We have 5 young kids, and the 4 young kids and me, 5 kids, we go through 6 gallons of milk a week. And milk out in New Jersey is about $3 a gallon. So, and we kind of did that early on too. Early on it was, 3-4 gallons a week? And she was like, Lee, food budget's like $60 a week, and more than $10 of that is your milk. So it's important to understand that there are ways to be wise about it. So what I am totally impressed with is that she will buy things when they are on sale. Perfect example is brownies. Box of brownies is like $1 on sale. Not on sale, they're like $3. But they don't go on sale each week. So what she does is each week's food budget, I've given her the month's amount, we've talked about it. Well, she breaks that up into the 4 or 5 weeks. Well, it's not just buying what we're going to eat that week. Once every 8 weeks, when brownies go on sale, she'll buy 6 or 7 boxes. Now, it's not because we're eating brownies once a week, but you gotta take advantage of it when they're on sale, right? Because otherwise, you're just spending more. So I was always impressed with that. She'd come home with like 8 boxes of brownies, and I'd be like, whoa, babe, that's, And yes, we're not eating them all then. That's just what's lasting us until things are on sale. If you're wise like that, you can be smart, but it requires you to not be spending everything, eating everything that you spend on the food budget. So, little shout out there, I'm very impressed with that, Dave. So this is a quick start budget. Any questions about this or the other form?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
You mentioned breaking it down into 12.
Yes.
Is there 12 or weekly?
Well, so,
Because
from
I've done both, and just,
yeah,
we're still in this process.
yeah,
But,
we all are, by the way.
well, I've got a budget laid
Yep.
out, and I'll periodically go through it, but what I'll do is I'll take my monthly bills,
Mm-hmm.
to multiply that by 12, but then I break it down.
Into
by
weekly.
52 weeks,
Bingo. If you're spending it 52 weeks,
because I know what I make a week.
there you go.
So-
and that works for you. That's perfect. Like that may not work for some people. So what we do is we break it down. I get paid every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So you get a couple of months where there's a third check. But that's not like, oh, hey, extra cash this month. No. We track what we're spent, what's coming in the door each month. That directly calculates what we set aside for taxes, what we tithe, not in that order, tithing and taxes. And then we start going through these categories. And we have it set so there's a certain amount. And then if there's variable, because my income can vary some, well, then as it's more or less, we have a hit list of what the priority is. We take that a step further then, or she'll take it a step further with the example of the food budget. So I know what months, there's 5 Mondays in the month, and that month gets a higher amount of food budget. I give her the cash, and then she tracks it monthly. So if the first week of the month, she spends, if it's 150 a week, let's just use that as well, if that first week has a lot of sales and she spends 180, she's mentally looking at what that's leaving her as an average for the last 4 Mondays of the month. So perfect, I love it. Do that as long as you're taking into account everything that you're spending in a year.
Yeah.
That gifts is one of those difficult ones because that may mean that in some months you're going to accrue cash. Okay. The other one is healthcare expenses. So we have a CHM, Christian Healthcare Ministries, biblical cost sharing, alternative as opposed to Affordable Care Act insurance. Well, what that means is basically we're on the hook for everything up to $500. We have their gold plan. So everything, kids visits, adult visits, anything up to $500, we pay for it 100%. Anything above $500, they cover completely. It's great for pregnancies. Well, that means that we got to figure out during the cold months of the year, the winter months, well, the kids, they get all kinds of sniffles and sometimes they need to go to the doctor. That means it's $130 a pop to go, tell them that our kid is fine or tell them that our kid needs a prescription. Well, that's tough to budget for. So we figure out an amount and we put that into an Excel envelope each month for medical expenses. And then as expenses come out of that, that gets subtracted. Does that make sense? It's a process. We could take it offline. I know we're a little bit over, so I just want to be mindful. Any questions that we have? Yes,
That's
sir.
why I was asking that, so it doesn't matter which one's better than the other, it's just whatever individually.
Whatever works for you, as long as you're spending less than you make, and it's achieving the priorities and goals that you want. You're putting first things first. As long as it's achieving those goals, the logistics are irrelevant. As long as it's easy and it works for you, and you're both on the same page. Okay? So, hope that answers your question. So I'll stick around afterwards just because I want to be mindful of time and, everybody give you all a break from Lee.